you've already mentioned a little bit about kind of the COVID situation, which of course has been a crisis for our society, but for a lot of businesses as well. And really, crisis can occur at any time, right? I mean, we couldn't predict COVID. Who knows when the next crisis happens, whether it has to do with something happening with a client or whether it happens to do with something like a pandemic. But in times of crisis, what do leaders need to do differently in those times?
Well, you and I have and everybody through our careers have had good times and bad. Never have we seen, at least I haven't, something that changed so dramatically that had such a massive impact all the way up the chain, all the way down the chain, including, my customer and their customer and so forth. And so, the silly expression, high tides raises all boats, right? When business is good, little things kind of get ignored and revenues or profitability can mask a lot of stuff. This crazy crisis that we are in, this pandemic, has forced us to really be exposed as leaders. So what the hell are you going to do about it, right? You don't have revenue, and adjusting people and cost and taking out people of our businesses through no fault of their own and all those kind of things. And so I quite honestly believe, in these kind of things, defaulting to, and the crisis exposes who we really are: humility, sincerity, honesty, transparency, involved, engaged. If I'm sitting at my home, calling shots while there people are potentially in harm's way or working the plants, I think we got back to that. You're always on stage. This is the time for leadership to step up, and we see real leaders. And and it's not just to the business, right? You see what's going on in our philanthropic dynamics and those charities they've lost their revenue streams, and you got to find another way, right? And so I just think that's what's so really important, that concept of empathy, of truly understanding, because you and I can have a conversation, but I got no idea what's going on behind your wall, what you're dealing with in your family and your health, and, on and on and on. And that's a real skill that I think you can work on. Some people have intuitively are like that, but teaching people how to be empathetic, sincere leaders is critical.
Yeah, huge. I love that. The last question before the fun question that I'd like to ask you is about the next generation of leaders, right? I mean, we are both on the older half of the leadership world, perhaps in some ways, but when you hear about people talking about that next generation, what gets you excited about that? How can we best empower younger leaders towards success?
Well, when you sent me the question, I thought of two things immediately. First and foremost, my kids and their friends, and now even younger, are incredibly good at multitasking. The first video games that you and I probably played, and me before you, was Pong, right? So all we did was watch the thing go back and forth, and we had action and reaction. The video games, the education, the stuff on the internet, the way these young people can think in 5, 6, 7 dimensions, do 10 things at the same time, is going to take a very different leader in the future to make sure that it's effective and focused, but that's a skill and an attribute of the next generation that is very different than mine, and definitely than my parents and their generation. The second thing that I really think is topical, but it's also, I think, really timely, is this issue of inclusion and diversity. And I heard a speech recently by a bank executive, a gentleman that had gone through a transformation to a woman, and I love the way he summarized it. He said, diversity is fact, inclusion is a choice. And so I think today's generation, I can only speak for the ones I have exposure to and my kids, they don't see color or discrimination the way maybe I might have saw some of it. Now, I can't be too general because different parts of the world are different, but my son's friends, he doesn't see a black, a white, a brown, or a green. He sees Freddie. And so I think today's young people and their ability to see on a broader scale, their ability to influence social cognizance and so forth, hopefully has really exciting stuff for our future about how we really deal ultimately with that decision or choice around true inclusion. And the ability now for them to communicate with people they've never met, that to find a way to build a trust with somebody somewhere that they've never met, that has some common likes and so forth, I think will help knit this world together and hopefully in a much better place. Because we've seen in recently really ugly situations, and there's what we haven't seen is probably even worse. So I look forward to that in the free, going forward, just seeing a whole next level generation of how do we get the world to play together as opposed to this whole discriminatory dynamic we've had to deal with.
Yeah, I like that, because diversity is a fact. It's not going away. In fact, we're becoming a more and more diverse world, right? And so we need to be making that intentional choice for inclusion. I like that. So,
well, I was at like a Safeway or a Costco recently, and I ran into a guy, and we were having this conversation, and he asked me the question. He said, "Well, what's a Canadian anymore, right? You look around, right? There's every size, shape, color. It's like, what's a Canadian? We're all bloody Canadians, right?"
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. That's good. So the final question, a little bit of a fun one. We'll try it here, Paul. And if it doesn't go very good, because it might stretch your brain a little bit, we can cut it out, and I'll ask a backup question. But let's just imagine for a second that they're making a movie of your life. Okay, so whether it needs a movie or not, I'm not saying. But let's say they're making a movie of your life. Which actor plays Paul Soubry?
I don't know. I had somebody in a recent discussion ask me, kind of what do you want to be known or remembered for? And look, I didn't put any Man on the Moon, and I haven't won a Stanley Cup, and I haven't whatever. I've been really fortunate to be involved with businesses that have done really well and done globally. And so, I hope the actor, if we ever got there, heaven forbid, would be somebody that would be seen as, genuine and sincere, and that fundamentally cares about the outcome and the people, as opposed to back to whether I got the goal or you got the goal kind of thing. And, the Tom Hanks kind of character that is so, is a believability and a genuineness to it,
Yeah. I like that answer. I never know how people are going to respond to my surprise questions, but I think you nailed that one pretty good. So good job on that one, Paul. So
thank you.
And Paul, thanks for joining me. I know with these interviews, when I talk to these great leaders like yourself, I feel like we could probably talk forever around some of these things, because I can tell you have a heart for it. I can tell you have a passion for it. I do myself, but trying to keep these bite-sized tidbits for some of those other leaders out there who can gain value from hearing what you had to say. So thank you for sharing that. For all the listeners who are listening to this, if you haven't listened to some of the other episodes, listen to those, but hopefully you took some notes here from listening to Paul. The key thing is leadership. It's about being intentional, it's growing and becoming better at what you do and who you are. And so keep doing that. Paul, thanks again. All the best with the work you're doing at New Flyer. And because you're a Canadian Manitoba company, I wish the best for everything you're doing over there. I hope you continue to grow and be a world leader like you already are.
Hey, Ben, I really appreciate the opportunity. I'll give a commercial and make a plug. I've been really lucky in my lifetime to get involved with charities and communities and philanthropic type issues. And as a young leader, getting involved, watching Hartley Richardson manage a meeting, watch Mark Shipman control an agenda. This is free consulting. And so any young leader that really wants to learn, it's a safe environment, get involved in community-oriented stuff. You're giving back and you're getting just as much from a learning, because you're working and learning from other, community leaders. And so to me, that's a really, really, it's free. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity.
Some great wise words to close us off. Thanks so much, Paul. All the best to all of you watching, and you as well, Paul.
Thank you, Ben. Be well.